The Regional Growth Strategy is the most important document Metro Vancouver has ever produced.
The lack of green zone protection for agricultural and conservation lands, the transfer of municipal land use authority to the region, and the role of TransLink.
This has huge impacts on tourism, on our quality of life, on our views of the North Shore, and of course on the habitat there, on the ecosystems.
All this does is drive land prices up in the region, increases speculation in the region, and makes it more difficult for bona fide farmers, young people, to buy farmland because the prices are so high, because everybody looks, well, eventually our turn will come.
Of no force or effect where it is inconsistent with the Agricultural Land Commission Act.
The City of Vancouver has a population of almost 700,000, which is 1/3 of that population, and yet we haven't even had one public hearing.
Is this plan good for the people of Metro Vancouver? Is it good for the environment? Is it good for sustainability? Is it good for our children? Is it good for our finances? Is it good for everything that we love in this region, which is one of the most beautiful and livable places in the world? If you check cityhallwatch.ca, you can see quite a lot of information about the Regional Growth Strategy, and you can see some correspondence between City Hall Watch and the staff of Metro Vancouver, including the Commissioner and CAO, which I think stands for Chief Administrative Officer, Mr. Johnny Carline. We have invited them repeatedly to come here tonight, and admittedly, it was on short notice of just a few days. But they have repeatedly said that they're not sending not him, the commissioner himself, but none of their many staff. I thought that at Metro Vancouver they might be public servants, and I was hoping that they might be able to afford one person to come here tonight and correct our misunderstandings or misinformation, if there is any. But I think this is giving me, and I think all people in Metro Vancouver should get a sign that that seat at the far end of the table is empty. I think we've got some very important things to discuss, and the fact that they could not send one person here to comment in any way is a bit disappointing. And I understand that this tomorrow could be potentially one of the greatest handovers of democratic power in BC history to a body which is comprised of unelected, or they're elected. They're not directly elected officials. It's like a one step removed from elections. So here are some people who are not accountable in their positions as board members on Metro Vancouver. And as you listen tonight, I ask you to just think about that. And I also ask you, as we listen to a little bit about the process that happened to get to this document, everyone should ask tonight and in the coming weeks, who is watching out for the public? Here's an example of the advertisements that were put in local papers in about November. They were placed in most local papers about 2 days before the hearings went on. And this is the kind of text that you see. It doesn't exactly give you an idea of what it's all about.
There wasn't even a public hearing in the city of Vancouver. There were only 4 for the entire region of 2.1 million people. The city of Vancouver has a population of almost 700,000, which is 1/3 of that population, and yet we haven't even had one public hearing to discuss this in the final draft. Apparently there's been lots of opportunity for public input and so on over the years, but it's been, as you say, it's been very quiet. It hasn't been on the radar. And I'm just wondering, why is this particular council so silent on this?
I'm borrowing from the Urban Development Institute, which is basically the voice of development industry. On our website, they're having a luncheon just shortly after the vote. It's in, I think, February 2nd. But here's what they're saying to their members. The Regional Growth Strategy is the most important document Metro Vancouver has ever produced. If you do business anywhere in a region, you will be affected. And then into details, I won't read the whole thing, but this establishes urban containment boundary, et cetera, has numerous other provisions guiding densities, industrial use, commercial use, transit, urban centers, and agriculture. Each municipality is required to incorporate RGS into planning, which in turn impacts zoning and development approvals. Changes will require municipal and Metro Vancouver's approval. If enacted, fundamentally will affect how land use decisions are made, who will be making them, and the development process as a whole. Doesn't sound that important, does it? I'm getting comments on email even today, like this one here from a land use and community planner with a lot of professional signs behind her name. I've only just read about regional planning, the regional planning currently underway. Thank goodness for City Hall Watch. I'm not trying to just advertise, but this is the point. I would say the vast majority of people in this region don't, even if they have heard the words regional growth strategy, there's no idea what it means. And on this, this is everything, as I mentioned, this report came out on, at noon last week on Friday. One city councillor I spoke to this afternoon said he really started to realize what this means just in the last 4 days, the last 4 business days. And the text of this document really, even though there was public input since years ago, the text of the document just came together in the last few months and was presented to the public hearings at the end of November. So if an elected official who's expected to study the document and understand the implications for the whole region, if he's having a hard time grasping it, how about us ordinary citizens who are busy with our families, our work, and so on?
Sorry, Randy, who is that?
Who said that? Yeah. It was Harold Steves from Richmond. So, and I believe he's quite familiar with the material, so it makes me wonder about the other 170 or so mayors and councillors in the Metro Vancouver region.
So TransLink's approval is required to adopt or amend the regional growth strategy. TransLink must provide written comments, as I mentioned, on municipal regional context statements. And TransLink is to review amendments to industrial areas. TransLink to be consulted on land use in frequent transit development areas or corridors. So TransLink's systemic conflict of interest as a developer. The provincial legislation allows TransLink to use real estate development for funding based on a Hong Kong model. And the RGS facilitates TransLink's real estate development mandate, and that's really what this is all about. The public has just not been involved in this process. The RGS accommodates urban sprawl in order to receive municipal consent for some transfer of land use authority within urban areas to Metro Vancouver to assist in TransLink's Hong Kong model to use development to fund transit. That's really it in a nutshell. Do we want our transit to be sort of directed by where TransLink can make the most money out of development, or do we want it to be directed by where it's best for the community and where we really need it, and the form that we need it in, and the form of development that we want our communities to have, not just high towers in order to pay for transit that maybe is not really the right way for those communities. The general concerns, in summary, are that the regional growth strategy has a seriously flawed process and has major problems. These problems include the lack of green zone protection for agricultural and conservation lands, the transfer of municipal land use authority to the region, and the role of TransLink. The RGS should not proceed further with the adoption process until these problems have been resolved.
You know, you can see that the impacts are huge. You can see this from Stanley Park. If we go down here, we can see this from the downtown. If we lose this entire hill and our mountain, and it becomes a developed mountainside and not a pristine view. So this has huge impacts on tourism, on our quality of life, on our views of the North Shore, and of course on the habitat there, on the ecosystems. And I thought that one of the purposes of this regional growth strategy would be to find a way to manage our growth, that we don't commit any more urban sprawl, and try for a sustainable and ecologically responsible method for managing our region. And one of the things I talked about in my 5 minutes at Metro Vancouver's public hearing is the fact that peak oil was mentioned once, and only once, in the report. And I did not see any response to peak oil. So if the price of a liter of gas goes from, $1.10 or $1.20, I don't drive, but if it goes to $2, if it goes to $3, if it goes to $5, are you going to respond? What if it goes to 8? And we know that we're going to have energy shortages. We know we're going to have to transition from fossil fuels, and we're squandering a lot of resources and not doing this transition when we can. And I really felt that any regional strategy should address this fundamental change and shift that our species has to take. And it's not being done, so I was very saddened. And my other comment is that I think the legitimacy of the entire public consultation process is called into question, as none of the concerns raised by any of the speakers at the public hearings have been adequately addressed in the final text of the RGS. And to me, that is key. So I spent time preparing for my presentation. I know a lot of other people spent their time and effort. And if it's just a matter of the board listening to everyone, but not responding, I don't think it's a legitimate public consultation, and therefore it's not fit to be put to vote, just based on that single observation.
If you look at Section 46, it is totally clear that the ALC Act takes precedence over any bylaws, any local bylaws, and the Metro Vancouver Regional Growth Strategy is a local bylaw. If Metro votes this through, they have a piece of legislation that, according to the executive director of the Agricultural Land Commission, is, his words are, of no force or effect where it is inconsistent with the Agricultural Land Commission Act. And it's illegal, and it makes a mockery of this growth strategy 2.3, protect the supply of agricultural land and promote agricultural viability with an emphasis on food production, when you have obviously cities trying to make it so that they can more easily take land out of agricultural use. It's actually setting up a conflict between Metro Vancouver, these poor, well-meaning people who have had a lot of their responsibility taken away, but they're still doing what they can, as we all do, with what remains to us. And now, so then they will be set up in conflict with the Agricultural Land Commission if this goes ahead. What I'm saying is the regional growth strategy should not go to the bylaw vote until it has been brought into compliance with the Agricultural Land Commission Act.
With these study areas, you'll find that areas we thought were finite and that there was no more incursion into the agricultural land reserve are now open for this speculation. All this does is drive land prices up in the region, increases speculation in the region, and makes it more difficult for bona fide farmers, young people, to buy farmland because the prices are so high, because everybody looks, well, eventually our turn will come. And we keep encouraging that.
Now, you call this plan, or portions of this plan, illegal now, and Mr. Carline kind of clarified what the Metro Vancouver's position is on that. Have you changed your opinion?
No, I haven't changed my opinion at all. The fact that Metro says the ALR in the verbiage says the ALR is primary does not get away from the fact that those areas that are mentioned are null and void under the Agricultural Land Act, and the Land Commission has told the board that those portions of our bylaw do not apply. So the Land Commission has definitely said that they're not legal, regardless of whether you say, well, the ALR applies. If the ALR applies, then Metro Vancouver should remove the offending properties and take them out of the urban area and make sure they're placed firmly in the green zone portion of the ALR.
Harold, what odds would you give of the plan being stopped or amended at this point now?
Oh, I don't think I think the plan will go ahead, but I think that every time a city comes up now with an amendment
amendment to the plan in those study areas or in the areas that are urban in the agricultural land reserve, every time that happens, there's going to be a major battle within those neighborhoods and those communities to prevent it from happening. And that's all I was doing today, was simply giving the warning of things to come. Because if you look at the people who attended the hearings, they were all leaders of the environmental and the agricultural groups within the region. They didn't bring out vast numbers, but the leaders were all there, and they made it very clear that this has to stop.
What the effect of this 50% and two-thirds voting process is going to have on the smaller municipalities, isn't that going to effectively cut them out from having any meaningful say in their own futures?
Every speaker, maybe except for one, called for a referendum on the issue because all of the speakers said this is such a major issue that's going to affect us all in the region. There's an election coming up this year. So why can't the voters decide at the ballot box whether they want this regional growth strategy or not?
I would like to make an appeal to the experts out there, the lawyers, the planners, the academics. Please help the people of the Metro Vancouver. We got to figure this out. And the average citizen has a really hard time doing this. We need to work this out. We've got a problem in our society. Is this plan good for the people of Metro Vancouver? Is it good for the environment? Is it good for sustainability? Is it good for our children? Is it good for our finances? Is it good for everything that we love in this region, which is one of the most beautiful and livable places in the world? So we have a lot of questions.